every regulation of the ordinance, from signage to umbrella color to hours of operation to nights of operation to appearance of his area with coolers, canopy tent, propane heaters. Parking on the street and not getting any tickets, yet nothing has been done to keep the vendor in line with the ordinance. In fact, the council and the committee only encourage the vendor by allowing him to do whatever he pleases. In the past several months, the vendor started operating in front of food establishments without a permit, all different nights of the week, all hours of the night. The vendor clearly knows he's breaking the ordinance regulations. He knows he can get away with it because nothing is being done to stop him. There's no enforcement. Council is passing the buck onto the police and to the merchants. The police warn them over and over, but that's it. Nothing else is done. Even with warnings, the vendor continues to operate illegally. He shows no respect for the ordinance council and the committee who gave him all these privileges against the ordinance. No respect for the police or the merchants. Now he's applying for a permit to operate from 2:30 a.m. to whenever in front of a food establishment, knowing that there's another eatery next to it. You cannot allow this to happen. This is wrong. It's just wrong to allow him to operate next to a food establishment that is open 24/7. That's why he wants to be there. It's not fair to the merchant who has worked so hard to establish the business, create jobs, and pay extremely high taxes. This will be a low blow for the Historic Society, Council, and the mayor to allow. The merchants and residents have put up with enough. This has to stop. The merchants and city council worked hard to get an ordinance in place. For what? For what? Only to have it be ignored. If the vendor set up on Main Street with all his coolers, umbrella, canopy tent, and propane heaters, it would be a different story. There would be so much enforcement, the vendor wouldn't know how to act. It is obvious members of City Council and the committee do not care about the Southside Business District or the merchants. In behalf of the merchants of the Southside Business District, I'm begging the Historic Society and Mayor Callahan to stop in and do something to stop this. This is an ordinance with specific rules and regulations. Let's stick to the ordinance, please. Stick to the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kowalski. Anyone else? Mr. Nile?
Good evening, Council. Chuck Nile, 1966, Pinehurst Road, Northwest Bethlehem. Before the meeting, I passed out some graphics stating some figures from your 2011 budget compared to your 2012 budget in reference to overtime and temporary help. Now, in the overtime business, there's quite a bit of money. And most of the money that is in the overtime, on the next page in your budget book, you have to explain how this money is going to be spent or where it's going to come from. And all during the budget book, 2012, this is 100% reimbursed by, quote unquote, Jeff Clark's Arts Quest Music Fest. Well, guess what? Morning call, December 25th. Jeff Park's Music Fest Arts Quest. I've just lost $750,000. Oh, mercy me. So who's going to pay the bills? Who's going to pay the 100% of all that overtime? You think Jeff Parks is? The way he said it, he's broke. He never gave this city a penny anyway in the first place. Anyway, the reason I did that for your purpose, was to make it clear as to how much we spend in this city. To the people that don't have a copy of this year, the overtime will be $1.7 million in overtime. That's including police, firemen, so-and-so, all the way down the list. And in temporary help, you have $2.1 million. That's quite a bit of money. And also, we got host fees, which we, the citizens, I don't think we've gotten a penny out of those host fees in 3 years. But you people up there, you spend money like it's, what? You go next to the library and just print it and off we go. That's a lot of money. That's almost $4 million. Give me an answer. Why don't you give us a break? You could easily pay $4 million. I'll just say $2 million out of 9.3 million host fees, which you're going to get this year, according to your book, and just give all the taxpayers, 20,000 of us, a $200 less city tax. That won't hurt your budget. But you insist. That's all you keep doing is spend, spend, spend. And I sit up there and watch all your faces for how many years now? You have the same expressions. The same expressions for everything. Everybody that comes up here, everything that's done. It's the same thing over and over and over again. I don't know what to tell you people anymore. You got to do something different. I turn around, this city is a mess. You may think it's great. I don't know where you walk around it. But theoretically, this city is a mess, and it's in trouble. 2 years from now, I hope we get out of it. If we don't, I'll be back in 2 years to see that you do.
Thank you, Mr. Now. Mr. Grubb? Yes.
Dana Grubb, 2420 Henderson Place. First, Dennis Reichert mentioned that some of the appointees were here tonight, and just as a resident, I'd like to thank them for making the time and effort to show up at a meeting like this. I hope you have that kind of attendance at all of your board and commission meetings as well. During the debate on the closing of the Dewberry Avenue Firehouse, I had mentioned that I had spoken with representatives of the insurance industry about the potential impact on homeowners and renters insurance policies if the firehouse was closed. I'm in the process of trying to determine why I have a 13.8% increase on my renter's insurance this year. And once I'm able to determine that, I'll be back to let you know the results of that research. I hope it's not because a firehouse was closed, because if my renter's insurance went up 13.8%, I can only imagine the impact on homeowners in the district that firehouse covered. You may have saved money, but the taxpayers in this city have not. It's interesting tonight that you had two earlier speakers get up and talk about enforcement of city ordinances, there's a theme. And I agree with pretty much of what was said on both of them. This city's record of enforcement, it's one thing to pass the law, it's another thing to enforce the laws that are passed. And I think the administration, city council, owe it to the residents of this community to ensure that when you make the effort to create legislation that creates more law, that you also make a similar effort to enforce those laws, whether it's the administration taking money that they have not gotten your approval on, whether it's not enforcing the card ordinance, the vendor card ordinance. You owe it to the residents to do that. As far as the $900,000 that was needed, I don't think there's a person in this room who would debate the need to make that cash available. But think about this for a second. I think Bob Fenning had mentioned creating that rainy day fund, that 2 months worth of reserves. Late last year, you had an excess in the casino host fee revenue of $475,000, which you made available to the administration to use because they had a cash need. And yet they've come around and told you that we have an $800,000 plus cash surplus at the end of the year. It may have been better to take that $475,000 and put it into that, begin to build that rainy day fund, that 2-month cash reserve, so that that is there for the future. The cash would still be available with your permission to use it. But it's about time that you begin looking at doing that. And when a revenue like that is projected at a certain amount exceeds that, why not take the excess? Build that rainy day fund so that when cash flow problems arise or special project needs arise or whatever the situation is, that you're actually in a position to do something about it and not continue the same practices that have gotten the city into the financial disarray that the city currently is in. You know, at council, I understand what Chuck Niall is saying. I mean, it's kind of interesting when we stand up here and look at you, and I'm sure you have your perspective looking at us getting up here. But it's pretty much a blank look when you stand up here. Some of you will look a little more intense than others. Every once in a while we'll get a smile out of somebody. But you need to take your laws seriously that you pass. Whether it's the administration or it's a resident or a business person, you need to take them seriously. And at the end of the day, while the need may be real and legitimate, the end doesn't justify breaking the law. And so you need to take that into consideration when you make the effort to pass laws to make sure that they are enforced the way they need to be enforced. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grove. Any other public comment? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.